Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christina Harris, the Director of Land Use and Planning at the Metropolitan Planning Council. On behalf of MPC, the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, and the City of Chicago, I'd like to welcome you to today's Global Voices Local Action event, the fifth event of a 7-part series focusing on the We Will Chicago citywide plan. These events will occur each month through November. Be sure to register for upcoming events at wewillchicago.com. The next event is scheduled for October 26th and will focus on transportation and infrastructure. Today's event is focused on the lifelong learning pillar. We will hear from panelists and a moderator about We Will Chicago and the goals and objectives in the plan related to lifelong learning. Panelists will provide presentations about initiatives in Chicago as well as the city of Vilnius, Lithuania, engage in a short moderated discussion, and then we will ask participants to provide input on some key recommendations via an online polling tool called Mentimeter. So that we can all engage easily in today's panel, here are a few housekeeping points. We've enabled the Q&A function here on Zoom. You can find it in the bottom portion of your screen. We ask that you use the Q&A function to post any questions so that we can easily access them. This event also features live closed captioning in English, so please click closed captions here in Zoom to turn the English captions on and off. We'd also like everyone to know that this event is being recorded. We will share a link to the recording and any relevant resources in a follow-up email, so keep an eye out for that. We have a pretty tight agenda, so we may not get to your questions as part of the Q&A. However, after this event, we will send out answers to all questions that we receive as part of the event follow-up. Today's event will feature 2 presenters, 2 panelists, and 1 moderator. You can find more information about each speaker online, which we will share a link for now. Let me see if I can drop it into the chat. There you go. You can get all of the bio links for the speakers. Each speaker will be introduced before they begin the remarks and presentation. To get us started, I'd like to introduce Dr. Marquita Newell and Professor John Schmidt, who are from the Loyola University's Chicago School of Education. Dr. Newell is currently serving as the interim dean in the School of Education for Loyola University Chicago. Dr. Newell earned her BS in elementary education at the University of Southern Mississippi. Dr. Newell went on to obtain her MS and PhD in educational psychology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Before joining Loyola's School of Education, Dr. Newell was an assistant professor in school psychology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Dr. Newell is an associate professor in school psychology, and she's committed to advancing consultation and multicultural competence among school psychologists. John Schmidt is a clinical assistant professor in the School of Education at Loyola University Chicago. He teaches undergraduate and graduate students, conducts research, and designs professional development on race equity in schools, civic education practices, and university school partnerships. He also directs university school partnerships at Senn High School and McCutcheon Elementary School in partnership with the Community School Initiative of Chicago Public Schools. John served as manager of civic education, service learning, and student leadership initiatives at Chicago Public Schools from 2002 to 2014. John lives in the Ravenswood neighborhood with his family and has been a resident of Chicago for 31 years. John will be the moderator for today's panel, but first we will hear some introductory remarks from Dr. Newell.
Thanks so much, Christina, and thanks to all of you for participating in this online discussion. Learning is a pathway for opportunity. Opportunity brings choice, and having choice is freedom. It is for this reason that lifelong learning is essential to creating healthy communities where all members can thrive. For far too long, however, a high-quality education has been positioned as a privilege that is reserved for a select few. Barriers such as racial and economic segregation, inequitable pre-K through 12 learning opportunities, inadequate financial support, lack of knowledge about and access to educational opportunities from early childhood to late adulthood have only served to put education farther out of reach, especially for our most vulnerable and marginalized communities. The goals and objectives of the We Will Chicago Lifelong Learning Plan are strategically designed to disrupt these insidious forms of oppression to ensure that all Chicagoans have full, unobstructed access to formal and informal educational opportunities across the lifespan, to ensure all Chicagoans have choice and opportunity. At the core of the proposed plan is the belief that our political, educational, and economic institutions have been contributors to the widening educational disparities. Therefore, they must take responsibility for helping to eliminate those disparities. Thus, our core institutions must also be lifelong learners that adapt to meet the needs of our changing communities. Most importantly, those who are most marginalized must not only be at the center of this change, they must be the drivers. So we assemble here today as community members, political and educational leaders to ask ourselves, how can we help to make education live up to its promise of being a source of liberation, not just for our children, but for our parents, our grandparents, our friends, and our neighbors. If we do this, then we will lift us all. This is fairness. This is justice. On behalf of Loyola University Chicago School of Education, I thank you for being here today. We are honored to help host this important event, and we are committed to the journey. Now I'd like to introduce Juan Sebastian Arias, who will give us an overview of the We Will Chicago and the lifelong learning goals and objectives. Juan Sebastian Arias currently works for the office of the Chicago Mayor, Lori E. Lightfoot, as a Deputy Director of Policy. There he manages strategic policy and place-based initiatives across housing, neighborhood development, and food security, from equitable transit-oriented developments to vacant lots to fair housing. He has over 12 years of experience working to advance racial equity and social justice in cities through policy, research, community engagement, and cross-sector partnerships. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Noel, for the inspiring grounding for the session today. And good afternoon, I guess it is, to everyone. Thanks for joining us. I will start by going over an overview of the We Will Chicago plan and process before passing it over to the panelists. And I believe we'll have slides popping up very, very shortly. Just give it a second. Great. Great. So We Will Chicago. Obviously, I think you all, if you're joining this, you might be a little familiar, but to ground set us all, We Will Chicago on the next slide is the city's the first citywide planning process since 1966. And the purpose of a citywide plan is to create a collective vision for the future of the city of Chicago, for its growth, for its future development, for policymaking and budgeting. The We Will Chicago process itself was guided by the principles of equity and resiliency. And if we go to the next slide, I can actually say a little bit more about the framework behind the plan. Great. So I just mentioned that the two guiding principles, sort of like the North Stars of We Will Chicago, are around equity and also resiliency. Equity being defined as getting to that outcome or to the place where anyone's life outcomes are not defined by their racial identity, ethnic identity, gender identity, and so on. And then resiliency around the ability of an individual group to thrive despite any obstacles or setbacks. If we go to the next slide, one layer further down in the We Will Chicago process were these five themes and 8 pillars. And actually the 5 themes are not listed here. I think they were on the previous one, but those really were the city's commitment to how we wanted to conduct the process itself. The 2 that I'll call out in particular are around the systematic assessment of equity impacts and historical acknowledgement or historical reckoning that builds from an acknowledgement of the past history of racist or oppressive public and private actions, policies, et cetera, that have led to the disparities that we see across the city today. So those were some of the themes. In addition to the 2 principles and 5 themes, we also, We Will Chicago is structured around these 8 pillars, and you can sort of think of these as, or they are literally the different chapters in the draft plan that's currently out. And these all represent different quality of life indicators. And they range from housing in neighborhoods, transportation infrastructure. Obviously, today we're talking about lifelong learning. And the 8th pillar around civic and community engagement is one that we actually added to the plan while we were in the process, as the need or the importance of having meaningful, authentic engagement we were seeing that across all the different pillars too. So we thought it was so important that we created an 8th pillar for it as well. On the next slide, just to orient ourselves again, what does a citywide plan do? Our intentions or the reasons why we're doing We Will Chicago is so that we can have this citywide vision and a plan that then we can do all these things that you see on the slide. So align our annual budgeting process, policy making around the goals and objectives that are identified through the citywide planning process. Other things like informing future land use and zoning decisions, creating standards for public decision making, etc. That will all be part of the future implementation phases if and when the draft plan or the final version of the plan is adopted by Plan Commission. On the next slide, we have a reminder of where we are in the current process. So We Will Chicago has had 3 phases. We are in the 3rd and final part of developing the plan itself. This started in 2020 over the court with some early community conversations, establishing the framework that I just described. Then from 2021 through earlier this summer, we had research teams that were selected through an open application process meet throughout that entire time. I believe it was 14 meetings for each research team, and develop goals and objectives, all while we were also hosting, had community partners hosting events, we were conducting surveys to get more feedback online, etc. And where we are now is that just 2 months ago, so in July, we published a draft framework plan for We Will Chicago for a larger public comment, public outreach phase, which was started in July, and we're going through the end of this year. So now we're in a very broad, very broad engagement phase. Want to get even more feedback and more input on the We Will Chicago goals and objectives. On the next slide, thank you. So just to zoom in a little bit more, I'll actually pass through this quickly. Like I said, we're in this broader public engagement phase through November. Then at the end of the year, we're gonna update the draft plan based on all the feedback that we're receiving. And then early next year, we'll be taking the plan for adoption and approval to the Chicago Plan Commission. Meanwhile, we are also deep into the implementation planning right now, so that we can start in 2023 after approval adoption by actually starting to take action on the goals and objectives in the plan. And I'll maybe go through the next couple slides a little quickly to make sure we have time for the panel. But again, reminder, we're in this summer of engagement right now. Currently, there is a We Will Chicago team that is going out to a lot of in-person events, festivals. I believe this weekend they'll be at Pilsen Fest. You can find a full schedule at wewillchicago.com/calendar, where you can see, where you can know where we will have We Will Chicago team members out in the field actually collecting physical feedback or surveys. We also do have online surveys currently up on the We Will Chicago website as well. On the next slide, just a little snapshot of what the actual document looks like. As you can see, we have an overarching goal, several objectives, and supporting data for every pillar, for every goal within every pillar. And then that's an example of the surveys that we're collecting. We can go to the next slide. Great. And so that's the overview of We Will Chicago. Before I jump into this lifelong learning, just want to remind again, so if we go to wewillchicago.com/surveys, you can take a survey, just take a few minutes and fill out a survey on every pillar's goals and objectives. So with that, I want to highlight or just go over the goals and a few of the objectives for lifelong learning. I won't read through everything, but maybe call out a few highlights. So for goal 1, for lifelong learning is around supporting the increased awareness, interest, and belonging to learning resources accessible to all Chicagoans at all stages of life. A couple of the example objectives here include leveraging informal learning to create pathways towards more formal educational opportunities and developing an accessible awareness campaign to promote the importance of lifelong learning. On the next slide, the second goal, and this is one that we're going to do some polling on later in the session too, so pay a little extra attention if you can. This goal is to create new sustainable educational pathways to the workforce, and especially calling out the need to do this for Black and Latino, Latinx, or Latina residents and those negatively affected by the criminal legal system. So a few examples here of the objectives that nest under this goal include removing barriers and constraints to participating in the workforce and accessing good quality jobs. So recognizing, in addition to wages, but also benefits and all that constitutes a good quality job. And another example objective here is to expand access to small business development, incubation, and other business-led learning opportunities, and to do so equitably as well. The third goal for lifelong learning, and this is the other one that we'll be doing some polling on later in this session, is to build on existing programs to create opportunities for learning and personal growth. A couple objectives here are expanding programs to accommodate individuals across the lifespan and with different abilities, and to identify effective programs throughout the city and expand access to all neighborhoods for those programs. The fourth goal for lifelong learning is to elevate existing support systems to increase formal and informal learning opportunities. One of the example objectives here is to address inequities in pay and resources for educators and care professionals. And then I believe this is the last goal on the next slide, is to expand the availability and access to spaces for lifelong learning in Black, immigrant, Indigenous, and Latina community areas. Two of the objectives here include ensuring all K-12 schools can support opportunities for equitable, joyful learning, especially in communities that were affected by the school closures, by previous school closures. And another example objective here is to create and support intergenerational community learning hubs in all neighborhoods. One last thing I'll note before wrapping up my part of this agenda is that in addition to the goals and objectives that we have in the We Will Chicago draft plan across all the 8 pillars, we do have a policy ideas document that's up on the website that represent the recommendations or the ideas that were developed by the research teams that go another layer deeper under these objectives too. So you can find even more specifics, some more specific policy ideas for how we meet these goals and meet these objectives in that document too. Great, and I believe that is the end of my portion on We Will Chicago. Again, thank you for joining the session, and I'm excited to hear from the presenters who follow me too.
Okay, thank you, Juan Sebastian. I appreciate your work in this area from the city's policy department, and look forward to our continued conversation here today. Appreciate your sharing about the lifelong learning goals and objectives that you've worked so hard on over the past months. We'll now hear from Chancellor Juan Salgado from City Colleges of Chicago. Chancellor Salgado will share about the programs that City Colleges has been implementing, in particular that are aligned with We Will Chicago. Juan Salgado serves as the Chancellor of City Colleges of Chicago. He oversees the city's community college system, which serves more than 50,000 students across 7 colleges. 75% of the students are Black and Latinx students. Under his leadership, City Colleges of Chicago has seen an increase in student graduation rates to the highest levels on record, an unprecedented systems level partnership with the Chicago Public Schools, the launch of Fresh Start, a first ever debt forgiveness program, the completion of the new major state-of-the-art facilities, a re-energizing of fundraising for student supports, and campus-specific plans focused on equity and student outcomes, among other efforts. Chancellor Salgado has focused his career on improving education and economic opportunities for residents in low-income communities. From 2001 to 2017, he served as CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino, where he worked to empower residents of Chicago's southwest side through education, citizenship, and skill building programs that led to sustainable employment and economic stability. Chancellor Salgado is a community college graduate himself, earning an associate degree from Moraine Valley Community College, prior to earning his bachelor's degree from Illinois Wesleyan University and a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. Welcome, Chancellor Salgado, and we certainly look forward to your comments today.
Thank you, John. I was going to say from one Juan to another, right? Having followed Juan, but since we're tocayos, which means we have the same name, I'll say from one Juan to one John. Thank you for your efforts with the We Will Chicago initiative and plan, both of you. Good afternoon, everybody. It is just a tremendous honor to be with you today. Lifelong learning is what City Colleges is all about. As Chicago's community college system, our 7 colleges, 5 satellite sites, and online programs serve students across our city. Whether they're seeking a college degree or certificate, whether they're taking free ESL or high school equivalent courses, whether they're learning in non-credit courses to boost their skills or just seek a specific interest that they may have. We are a lifelong learning institution that was created to be accessible to our entire city. The median age of our 55,000 students is 23, but we run the gamut from 2-year-olds in childcare to 80-year-olds still growing in knowledge and really everything in between. 75% of our students are Black or Latinx. They come from all across the city. Wonderful array of talents and abilities and circumstances that bring them to our college, and we embrace all of our students. Many of them are first in their family to attend college, and many others are working or caring for loved ones while going to school. We really, embrace our students, and we welcome all Chicagoans to take advantage of what all of City Colleges has to offer. Next slide, please. I want to focus in on our vision, as I think it's really important for the conversation today. Our vision at City Colleges is to be recognized as the city's most accessible higher education engine of socioeconomic mobility and racial equity. Our strategic plan includes 6 levers that include creating an exceptional, an equitable institution that creates an exceptional student experience with academic pathways that respond to the needs of our city. Next slide, please. it's very clear that the City College's strategic vision is closely aligned with We Will Chicago's lifelong learning pillar, including goals 1, 2, and 3, which strive to make lifelong learning and pathways to workforce available to all Chicagoans. Next slide, please. At City Colleges, we connect communities to economic opportunities by creating pathways that are responsive to the changing needs of our city's economy. Each of our colleges offers the full array of community college programs, but also incorporates a center of excellence in each and at least one in-demand field. So you can see our centers of excellence address transportation distribution, healthcare, culinary, construction, manufacturing, computer science and engineering, education and human and natural sciences, and business and professional services. Supporting these in-demand programs is key. These fields shown here are our centers of excellence, and our colleges work closely with employers to ensure the curriculum in these fields and our facilities remain relevant to the changing needs in industry, the changes that are going on very rapidly today within industries. These relationships have led us to invest in a School of Health Sciences at Malcolm X College, a manufacturing and technology and engineering center at Daly College, a tech launchpad at Kennedy King College, a hemp greenhouse and TDL center at Olive Harvey College, among others. We will continue to make these investments in order to be responsive to the economic needs, both of our residents and our businesses. As an outgrowth of our relationship with employers, we've developed work-based learning opportunities for our students with companies across the city like Aon, Accenture, Chase, and more. Ed Richardson, who you can see here, was a career changer. After working in private security, he started at Harold Washington College and worked his way through an apprenticeship program that we have at the global risk firm Aon. Now, he's no longer an apprentice. He's a full-time insurance broker at Aon. I see him regularly walking across the street as I'm going to get lunch. I see our former students all the time, like Ed, making big contributions within their places of work. We also, I will say, please go to the next slide. I also want you to know that we're focused on creating clear pathways for our students to and through college. One area where we've paid special attention to is strengthening our relationship with Chicago Public Schools. Through the Chicago Roadmap, we are building the strongest ever relationship with Chicago Public Schools. As a result of the Chicago Roadmap partnership, we have created new programs and grown others that we are working on today. To name just a couple, we created the role of post-secondary navigator, and now CCC navigators are in 46 CPS high schools, helping students with planning for life after high school and college enrollment. This year, we launched a full tuition, last dollar scholarship for all graduates of Chicago's option high schools to attend city colleges. And we continue to grow the STAR Scholarship, a last dollar scholarship, which has served more than 12,000 students and is growing. Next slide, please. While we've worked hard to build the highest quality programs that prepare students for the workforce or to transfer to four-year universities, we also know that college can be expensive. So we've invested in financial supports, technology supports, and creating connections to community to support access to city colleges for people across the city. Last year alone, we invested $9.7 million in free tuition programs, and we paid off $3.6 million in student debt. Our Future Ready program lets Chicagoans earn credentials in in-demand short-term programs at no cost. And our Fresh Start programs allows students who once had debt with us to come back and learn off their debt. We've raised money to provide students who need it with free internet and laptop computers, and we continue to work closely with communities to ensure everyone has access, including people living in communities most impacted by violence, who are looking for the opportunity that we know is out there. Look, it's very simple. If you're looking to continue your education, no matter where you are in life, no matter what your age, come and check us out. Look at what CCC has to offer. It's really, it's always the right time. It's never too late. I will provide our website. It's www.ccc.edu. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of We Will Chicago and to make our respective contribution towards this plan.
Thank you, Chancellor Salgado, for sharing all these amazing insights about the work that you're doing and leading through, sorry, I'll come on again, through the City Colleges of Chicago. Certainly appreciate your efforts and commitment to this work, especially around equity. And wonderful to hear about the new initiatives that are growing as you are doing the work. We'll come back to you in about a few minutes after our next panelist shares about some of the work that's happening internationally. And a quick word to that, our series has really tried to focus on what's happening in our own context, in our own city that is promising and is delivering results. We also wanted to look outside our city, look outside our country and see what other folks are doing around the world that might add to our conversation. So we are really excited to hear from Tomas Gulbinas today. He comes to us live from Vilnius, Lithuania. So we really appreciate your making the extra effort to be with us today. Tomas is a deputy mayor of Vilnius, Lithuania. He focuses on education, infrastructure, and social affairs. He is a public policy and government relations professional with a demonstrated history of working in business and in government. As a diplomat and lawyer, Tomas is a skilled leader in management, team leadership, strategy, international relations, EU affairs, European Union affairs, diplomacy, negotiation, policy analysis, and research. He's a highly experienced in multicultural environments and is passionate about technology and innovation. He formerly worked at Google in Poland and Lithuania, as well as in the Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You bring an amazing resume and pedigree to our work here today. So we appreciate your taking the time to be with us and are excited to hear what you have to share with us about your fairly new initiative in Vilnius. So thank you, Tomas.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much, John, for this kind introduction. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. And well, thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation to join this event. I'm really, really greatly honored by this and very happy to share on our work in education. Next slide, please. Well, I think the main reason why I am here today is actually that we successfully participated as a city in Bloomberg Philanthropies competition for the most promising ideas how cities should exit the pandemic. And we came up with a winning idea to turn the entire city into an open school, and in that way create a much more resilient learning model than we had before the pandemic struck everywhere. But before going into the substance of our project, I would like to very quickly catch your attention on another reason why I think I am here. And please, next slide now. That Vilnius and Chicago are actually sister cities on the basis of the declaration dating from 1993, so nearly 30 years ago, and that was signed by our respective mayors. And inter alia, and next slide, please, saying, and I quote, and the highlights are mine here, that our cities will carry out wide exchanges in such fields as education, and end of quote. Well, that was written 30 years ago, and shall we agree that that was visionary at that time? Next slide, please. But now to the substance. Actually, the Bloomberg Philanthropies competition was all about what's the best idea for cities to exit COVID. Over 600 cities presented their ideas, and we made it to the champions list together with 2 more European cities. And I'm happy to and really proud that I can tell today about why did we take that challenge and what is actually behind the idea. Next slide, please. So try to picture this. And the pre-COVID situation in Lithuania, we had majority of teachers over 50 years of age working at schools for 20 or more years, but actually lacking up-to-date modern teaching skills, and clearly lacking some of the digital skills, as only, well, 3% of the teachers were under 30 years old, which means that they were, well, internet natives, right? And 30% of schools in Vilnius were overcrowded. Vilnius is a city that is growing. We have more and more citizens, more and more children coming to schools. And some of the schools, well, a big part of the schools is overcrowded. Some of them even at the limit, so that they start they start thinking about working in 2 shifts, which is I presume very undesirable anywhere in the world. So and then the pandemic strikes, and what happens? Just over one weekend, all the schools are left empty. The teachers switch to online teaching in one weekend. They are in tears because they are in stress. They are insecure, which the insecurity which results from the lack of training and from the lack of knowledge of online tools at hand. But they made it. They turned into remote teaching just over one weekend. They are heroes. And what happened in addition is that the digital skills, both of the teachers and of the students, of the children, really spiked immediately. Something that we wanted to achieve for years and had difficulty to achieve just happened overnight, nearly. Well, not overnight, maybe in the period of a few weeks, but anyway, that was a big achievement. But then 1 year later, spring 2021, and the pressure starts mounting to return to physical premises of the schools and traditional lessons, the pre-COVID time lessons, because teachers become tired of online teaching. Teachers and parents become concerned about the academic achievement, which seems to be in decline because of no live contact between the teachers and the pupils and the students. And the students also become tired sitting at home and start complaining about loss of social contact. They lost contact with their friends. So we are faced with this situation, and but we don't want to go back to what was before the COVID period. So this is how we came with the idea. And next slide, please. That given that the pandemic has separated the learning process from the school building, from the physical premises of the school, we need to transform the school from the exclusive place of knowledge to a platform, both real and virtual, that would first empower teachers and students to choose between the traditional learning and the distance learning, but also start using the non-traditional spaces that are available in the city. And to actually build an instrument, an internet platform that would facilitate those non-traditional lessons in any space or in any public or private space in the city that would participate in that. And of course, we would like to, we decided that we need to engage partners as museums or businesses in order to widen the participation in our project and to actually offer more and more opportunity to the schools to go out of their buildings, of their premises, and use those non-traditional places to deliver lectures. Next slide, please. So we piloted this idea with 5 schools in Vilnius. For example, we asked our utility companies, such as Vilnius Water Company, to actually host a few classes of chemistry at their premises. We also asked ourselves what we as a municipality can offer to the schools. And we decided that, well, why not we give the city council room, which you actually see on the picture here in the slide. Why don't we give the city council room to one of the pilot schools to actually test whether the lecture of math could take place over there, and take the city budget as an example, and offer the students to just make calculations on that basis, and also use the voting, the electronic voting system that we have in the room, in order that they see the proportions and learn the proportions. What was a little bit more difficult was actually engaging not the public sector, but the private sector, but we succeeded in that. And one of the startups that is working in 3D modeling actually agreed to also host school children with their teachers and have their technology classes in that company. Next slide, please. Okay, so what we needed to build is an internet platform that would offer a convenient, comfortable tool for teachers to actually organize all this work. Because during our pilot, we of course organized these events outside of the school, these lessons by hand, just picking a phone, sending an email, but this is not workable. This is not sustainable in everyday life. So we said that we will create an internet platform that would be like Netflix of school lessons, but also an Airbnb of school lessons, so that the teachers could easily go there, book a lesson in terms of content, but also find a place which is the best suited to deliver that lecture. And one more finding that we did during our pilot project was that actually giving teachers professional guide equipment that you can see students walking here on the street with the earphones actually makes wonders. and all of a sudden, any street can become a room, a place for delivering lectures. Next slide, please. And I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Yeah, so why this is important? We made a survey with the students that participated in the pilot, and you can see the results. I will not repeat what's on the screen. We think that's a very positive result, but in addition to appreciation of this new form of schooling, students mentioned that it gives a better perspective on their future career. And what we also think is super important for cities is that they discover more places in their own city. They build a better relationship with their city. They fall in love with their city. And actually that drives them for more social engagement and stronger civic activism. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, both to Mr. Gulbinus and Chancellor Juan Salgado. We have about 12 minutes, and I'm going to pose 3, maybe 4 questions. So, but just so you know, we'll have about time for 2 to 3 minutes in each one of the question areas. And I'm going to try to get at some of the, you have touched on these in your presentations, so it won't be unfamiliar territory for you, but want to maybe drill down a little bit into these areas so that as this process continues to unfold, you know, what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about to replicate, strengthen, build on, use some of your ideas as creative energy to move this work forward in the city. And the first I want to talk about is collaboration. You both talked about collaboration and partnerships in your presentations, and it's really clear that you don't move your initiatives forward without deep collaboration with city, community partners, and other partners. What do you think it takes to build and strengthen collaboration and sustain that collaboration? And do you think the city can provide any kind of supports and put things in place that encourage and sustain collaboration? Maybe I'll start with you, Chancellor Salgado.
Well, thanks, John. Clearly what you need, and I'll use our partnership with Chicago Public Schools, which is a big impact collaboration, right? Between 2 very large institutions that can add a lot of value. But we've got lots of others that are really important. A common mission and goals is number 1. Clear terms for the partnership. We've built a governance agreement between our 2 institutions. So when a leader leaves, another leader comes in to a system and a partnership that's well defined. The milestones to measure that progress were key, and making sure that they were both realistic and aspirational. Goal setting there is really key. And I think most important, those communication points that lead to trust. Often it's the miscommunication that causes mistrust, right? And we've got enough of that going around, right? So over communicating at all levels of the institution. And I think the last one is you have to be inclusion oriented, right? More people involved, the better.
Awesome, thank you. And just to highlight a point that you made about leadership transitions, we are in a time when there's a lot of transition happening in careers for folks. And so knowing that there are some institutional strategies in place to live through transitions in leadership. Thomas, how would you answer those questions about collaboration?
Yeah, I would first like to say that I can subscribe to 99% of what Chancellor Salgado just said, and particularly I like the emphasis on communication, and it's actually probably impossible to over communicate when you're trying to resolve an issue or come up with a new initiative in a city. In our case, actually, well, we had the administrative instruments as municipality, right? To talk to in the framework of our project, to talk, for example, to public utility companies, right? That are separate from the municipality, but anyway, they are under control of the municipality. Yeah. So that seems to be an easy collaboration to establish when you have that administrative resource. The same goes with the school principals, right? That are appointed by the municipality in broad terms. But in order to succeed, we also needed participation and involvement and of the, for example, parents associations of the school. So we needed to convince that the parents of the pupils that actually these activities that we offer that are, well, not traditional at all, and might look weird at first glance. So communication and openness towards any questions that may come up. And we actually received those questions, not only directly from the parents association, but also via media. You may guess that journalists very quickly became interested in why all of a sudden some of the pupils are on the street during the school time, and yeah, explaining and convincing that this is actually not just students having the nice time on the street, but actually they are studying there, was well, something to do, right, in terms of communication. So I think in order to build everyone's collaboration, communication here is key.
Thank you. And I'm going to stay with you on this next one because yours is a fairly fresh initiative, in my understanding. But for both of you, just the question of scalability. Chancellor Salgado, you have a number of initiatives that are in their nascent stages as well. And so, as we think about lifelong learning, what are some of what should we be thinking about? As are these initiatives scalable? Are they designed to be fairly small and efficient in those ways? But how would you respond to that question about the scalability of some of your emerging initiatives?
Yeah, so we started really from the small scale that I tried to show in my slides, that we started with 5 selected schools that actually expressed the wish to be part of an experiment. But in terms of scalability, we are first looking to enlarge this project to all of the schools in Vilnius. So to go out on a city scale, but that is feasible. I'm pretty sure, and we will very shortly have already that work going. But looking at the bigger horizon, we already talked also to the other municipalities of our country, of Lithuania, and actually already registered the interest by the mayors of other cities and towns in Lithuania, because the instrument that we are now creating, it is, I would say, applicable, scalable to any place. It is not a place or subject specific. It's a platform that can serve in any place on Earth, and also easily be transferable to any other subject, any other theme than education.
Great, thank you for that. Chancellor Salgado, on the scalability of some of your emerging initiatives, what needs to be in place to have that happen?
Well, look, you choose the partners that you can scale with, right? And you think Chicago Public Schools, we could, at the end of the day, reach every public school student and their parents through this partnership, because the institutions are built to do that, right? Now, what's really important is get quality right you know, as you scale, okay? And to continue to get quality right. But sometimes we wait too much to get quality right in order to take the next step. And sometimes we go through too slow. And so making sure that we have that right cadence, we've been able to, create these model pathways that leads to jobs. And let me just say, this is the other thing, right? You know, the ability to scale for us in high demand occupations requires partnerships with the private sector in addition to the Chicago Public Schools. And so, so making sure that, you know, all parties that are involved here, public schools, community colleges, universities, and private employers are aligned to deliver the scale together, right? Because it's a link that needs to be in place and all parties need to be ready for the scale to be effective, right? But we got the right partners and we're creating the right links. And we believe that, you know, the pipe work that we're building will allow more and more people to come through it faster in the future.
Thank you so much. And on to the last question. You'll each have 1 minute. This is the 1 minute round. And this one is really important to me, but I think our countries as well. And it's about building democracy. And I think when we talk about lifelong learning and we're bringing people together, we can do that when we think about self-development, career development, personal fulfillment. But I think it's also about building life together in our communities. And I'm wondering how you feel that, to the extent to which you feel like the work that you're doing in this area is also about democracy building and how we can be thinking about this in terms of building our capacity to live and work as effective citizens today, especially today in the perilous times we live in. Chancellor Salgado.
I think that's integral to our mission at City Colleges of Chicago. It's interwoven, right? Our colleges are in communities. And so, you know, they're interwoven with the matters that those communities are, looking to improve or looking to advance. But also, we have to be intentional about the specific things that we're doing. We're very proud that one of our colleges, Harold Washington College, is a model leadership center. It was chosen as one of 9 colleges in the U.S. to receive, this honor, right? That means that we are engaging our students, in public life, right? And understanding the importance of that. The last thing I'll say is, there was a recent publication of the top 100 colleges for students that vote, right? And we had, a number of our colleges that made the top 100 in the country, right? And so that means that we're doing things that we need to be doing to fuel the democratic process within our city and country.
Mr. Gulbinus, in 1 minute, can you solve our democratic dilemma with us?
Yes, maybe. Yeah. While developing our project, we also took this data that the civic activism and the engagement of the young people is dropping in many places, Lithuania, US, I think everywhere. What I think is important here is to give the sense of ownership to the young people. In our case, we are trying and we are saying that straightforward, that by taking young people with their teachers out of the schoolroom to public places, private places in town, we actually strengthen their sense of belonging, their sense of ownership of the city, so that they really start loving the place that they were born, what they are studying, and also they then develop the sense of responsibility. Once they develop the sense of responsibility, I think we can be more or less sure that democracy gonna be there for long times.
Mr. Globinus, Chancellor Salgado, thank you for being with us today. That wraps up the panel portion of today's event. Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments and insights and your dedicated work to lifelong learning and building democracy. Wanted to turn it back over to Christina Harris now to guide us through the feedback session of the event.
Great. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers for today's conversation. We hope that through the presentations, you have gained a better understanding of the goals of We Will Chicago and what it can accomplish. The next part of our program will include some polling where you can provide feedback on the plan's draft objectives and goals. Before you leave the event, if you are not staying for the polling, please take a survey to let us know what you thought of the event. I will drop the link into the chat. But for everyone else who will be joining us, we are going to engage in an activity using the tool Menti. I'm going to share my screen. All the feedback that is captured through this polling will be provided back to the City of Chicago to help form changes to the draft framework. We'll be remaining in this webinar format, but if you have any questions, please continue to use the Q&A box and we will send out answers after the event. You can also send an email to wewill@cityofchicago.org. Because we are using Menti today, there will not be a conversational session. For those who are interested in having conversations about these goals or sharing their broader thoughts, we urge you to join for the upcoming in-person events across the city that Juan Sebastian provided information on earlier. Check out the schedule at www.wewillchicago.com. So please go and join us at www.menti.com to get started so we can share your input on today's event and the goals and objectives that we just covered for We Will Chicago. And I believe Morgan is going to share the code for how to access the Menti. So please go to menti.com and enter the code 16946877. You can do that from either your phone or from another screen inside your computer to follow along. After you're in, please just click the thumbs up sign so we have a sense of how many people are participating. I know that a number of folks have dropped off, so we hope that those who are still on the call will participate, so we can just do some polling around the objectives. Once again, if you are just joining on your phone, the code is 16946877, and it's www.menti.com. And we're going to get started in probably another 30 seconds. All right, so on a scale of 1 to 5, please select the extent to which you agree with goal number 2. So we're going to do goal number 2 and goal number 3, and this is the first goal. The first goal is create new sustainable educational pathways to the workforce, especially for Black, Latino, Latinx residents, and those negatively affected by the criminal legal system. And this goes from a scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree, 1 to 5. Please note how strongly you agree or disagree with this goal. Great, so seems to be about 4.3. Okay, so we are gonna ask some more in-depth questions around the objectives. So asking for each one individually on a scale of 1 to 5 for the objectives associated with goal 2. What is the extent to which you agree with or support each of the following objectives? Remember, it's on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being closer to strongly disagree, and then 5 being closer to strongly agree. And I'm going to read them as well. So the first one is strengthen and expand job training programs that provide employment opportunities after completion. The second one is strengthen the capacity of workforce training programs and partnerships for people negatively affected by the criminal legal system. The third one is remove barriers and constraints for participating in the workforce and accessing good quality jobs. The fourth one is align educational providers and key employers to create well-supported workforce pipelines, reduce the financial burden of participating in workforce training programs, and expand equitable access to small business development, incubation, and other business-led learning opportunities. All right. It looks like people feel pretty strongly in a supporter agreement with the top 2, a little less with the middle 2, and then a little bit more strongly again with the bottom 2. Great. Now we're going to ask a couple of questions that provide more of an actual response to what you actually like about the goal and the objectives. And this is an opportunity to weigh in and say, you know, what is positive about it, what you like about it. And then the second question as a follow-up is going to be about what you think is challenging or you would like to see added to it. So this one is, what do you like about this goal and its objectives? Helping reduce the financial burden for all learners, specific focus on those impacted by the criminal justice system. And note that none of this will do anything if we don't address racist hiring patterns, the overuse of staffing agencies. Give it a couple more minutes for people to put in some additional thoughts. All right, let's move to the next question around missing from this about this goal and its objectives, and what would you change? Give people a few minutes to put in what they think is missing, what they would change, what could be included. So if someone wants to see more specifics, and stakeholders at actual decision-making tables. Predatory hiring like agencies, large corporations. Another kind of similar question around, or statement around how these goals will be achieved, resources, political commitments aligned. Okay, great. We're gonna give it another minute for folks to get their responses in, and then we're gonna move to goal number 3. Okay. For goal 3, on a scale of 1 to 5, please select the extent to which you agree, strongly disagree to strongly agree, scale of 1 to 5 with goal number 3, which is build on existing programs to create opportunities for learning around and personal growth. Comparatively, this is scoring a little bit more in the middle range than so far than goal number 2 did. Okay. Now we're gonna ask the same question with all of the objectives that are part of goal number 3. On a scale of 1 to 5, please select the extent to which you agree with or support each of the following objectives, which are part of goal number 3. So 1 to 5, strongly disagree to strongly agree. Identify effective programs throughout the city and expand access to all neighborhoods. Sustain and expand the work of programs and programming in Black, immigrant, Indigenous, Latino, Latinx, and low-income communities. Expand existing programs to accommodate individuals across the lifespan with different abilities. And bridge the reach and impact of collaboration between Chicago public schools and higher education programs. Just a couple more minutes so people can get their responses in. I think, funny enough, the individual objectives for this, I think, have scored a little better than the actual goal. So maybe the goal itself is not descriptive enough of what the actual objectives are. I think that's interesting. So around, there's a couple of higher 3s and a couple of lower 4s. Okay, and I think like we did for goal 2, we are now going to move to the next slide for goal 3, where you'll be able to say what you like about the goal and its objectives. So please fill in your responses for this. So reaching neighborhoods currently left out. So working to expand local programs and initiatives as long as the ownership and use of these programs is not taken from stakeholders. Any other thoughts on what people like about this goal and its objectives? So people like the local program aspect, people like reaching out to communities and neighborhoods that have been marginalized in the past. Great. All right, and then there's one more. What is missing from this goal and its objectives? What would you change? So what needs to be included? What would you want to see added? Any concerns you have about the goal and objectives? Please take some time and write your responses here. The city needs to fund enforcement of workplace discrimination laws and put conditions on subsidies to ensure inclusion and job quality. Any other thoughts on what is missing from this goal and its objectives? Anything else to add? We're gonna give it another couple minutes. Focus on expanding opportunity isn't specific enough. We need new models and new spaces, or at least the rethinking of existing spaces to engage more community residents. Local ownership, generation of local spaces. Okay. These are all great comments. Really appreciate it. We will be sharing all of these back with the city. So I'm gonna wrap us up. I dropped the survey link into the chat earlier, but I wanted to say thank you all for coming today and sharing your feedback. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. We'd also like to hear from you about today's event. So please fill out the survey using the survey link that I dropped into the chat earlier to let us know how we can improve these events in the future and share any additional input you may have on We Will Chicago. Thanks again for coming. And hope you will attend the next event in this series on transportation and infrastructure. Have a great afternoon.